ready and fit time for this. So we got, let's say 6. Yep, I'm ready. All right. At this time, I'll call to order the City of Joliet pre-council meeting for December 6th, 2021. The Honorable Mayor Bob Odekirk presiding. Mayor?
Begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Clement.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin is absent this evening. Councilman Guerrero.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening, under agenda item, is a motion to receive the city manager's recommended 2022 annual budget. Is there a motion to receive the budget?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and seconded. Councilman Clement.
Here. Yes, I, whatever.
Clement. Clement. Aye.
Councilman Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Next, we have Director of Finance Jim Gadati to present the budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Administration. Tonight, I'm presenting the City Manager's 2022 proposed budget. Our first overview is all the revenues. The recommended revenues for 2022 is in your bottom right-hand corner. $388,757,293. What you have presented here is the 2 prior years. Those numbers tied to our annual audit. The current budget, which was the budget that was passed last December. Our estimated year end, which will become the 2021 budget, and department request and the city manager's recommendation. Also is our expenditures, and we're city manager's recommended, bottom right-hand corner, $438,118,000. And the data is presented the same as I just said. One thing to notice is that most of the amount for expenditures that exceed revenues are for capital items. And I will say that this numbers are a little bit different than what was sent to you after we met with our advisors on the water and sewer replacement, Rethink Water. They originally recommended we spend $28 million in cash to do the water main replacement program. After we met with them just last Wednesday, they recommended that we would take out bond anticipation notes for that amount rather than use up our cash reserves. This is what our fund balances are estimated to be. Same in the bottom right-hand corner. The total would be $250 million. Again, in our enterprise funds, those are run much like a business and they're accrual accounting. So they're not exactly what our liquid assets would be. Our liquid assets would be cash and accounts receivable. In our enterprise funds, it's accrual, so what's in there are also the value of our assets. Our 3 main operating funds is the general fund. Where the city manager's recommending $216 million in revenues, $206.6 million in expenditures. So our operating revenues would be 9.97 more than our operating expenditures. The reason for that is that's the American Cares program. As you know, we got 11 million, but the recommendation is to pay for body worn cameras out of that 11 million. So we still will have the 11 million in ARP money in 2021 and over almost 10 million in 2022. There is no recommendation except for the body worn cameras to spend that. In our water fund, we're recommending using approximately 3.8 million of our cash balance. And we're also recommending 25.6 million in capital expenditures. A lot of that is the water main replacement program. Our parking fund continues to be troublesome. Next year, it looks like if we continue current trend, we'll bring in 710,000, and that's about 1.24 million more than our revenues. Right now, we're currently having a study done on our parking system. As you know, we sold the parking deck, and we're using that money for a parking study. So this budget recommends operating the system as is until that study comes in. We believe that study will be done the first quarter of next year. But it continues to operate at a negative. We currently have about a $2 million negative balance in our parking fund. This just briefly outlines the different activities in our general fund. Of course, there's police and fire, planning, economic development, engineering, code, garbage, legal, financial services, and administration. In our water fund, we have 3 wastewater treatment plants, 594 miles of combined sanitary and sewers, 26 wells, 11 water treatment plants, 665 miles of water main, 8,351 fire hydrants, and 38 lift stations. Our parking fund now has 1 parking deck, 7 parking lots, 412 on-street meters, 19 on-street pay stations, and 700 on-street parking spaces. This briefly shows our expenditures. In 2021, our budget in the general fund was 180 million. This proposed budget is 206 million. The water fund, 62 million. That number should be 64 million in expenditures, and the parking fund is what we just talked. Again, 216 million in revenue is estimated to be 19.73% over our 2021 budget. This includes a property tax levy increase of 4.9%, which is attributed to new construction and growth. So that will raise our property tax a little over 2 million. However, we have paid all of our general obligation debt off. So other than the vehicle debt, which is paid from the vehicle replacement program, and the library debt, which is being paid by the library through a grant, we can lower our levy $1.6 million. So the net increase will really be very small, a little over $400,000. The levy for the library is requested to be the same, a little over $6 million. This budget restores funding for 27 positions included in the 2021 budget, but not funded. But it also includes funding for 29 new positions. It restores funding for the Bicentennial Park. If you remember last year, we took the funding out. And it also includes increases to our police pension fund, about 417,000, our fire pension fund, 508,000, and actually our IMRF decreased by over 600,000, and that's because our contribution rate went from 17.83% in 2021 to 15.03% in 2022. Very good news. The IMRF is very well funded. This also allocates funding for the citywide comprehensive plan, completion of the new bus facility, which is being funded through PACE grant and other grants, continued support of the historical museum, $200,000, our payment to Will County for the Will County Courthouse of $500,000, and the same funding for the Rialto of $375,000. It includes overtime for the fire department, almost $2.2 million. Our legal settlements are budgeted at $750,000, and almost $1.2 million for professional services. Of course, settlements are very difficult to predict. Some years they're like $300,000, and some years they're up to $2 million. So $750,000 seems to be enough, but you never know when you're gonna get sued, I guess. It has a heavy investment into our capital projects. 65 million was requested, 27 million is recommended. Some of the new projects is 9.45 million for roads. That does include 7 million for roadway resurfacing. The other roads that we're looking to fix is Chicago Street. We will be fixing that in the next couple of years from Jefferson to north of Cass. Also, the streetscape is budgeted in there. Also, an amount to have a study done on the plaza. If you remember the plaza, it's across the street from the Rialto. We had a presentation about that, but we're requesting to update that study, bring it before council, and then council can decide the design of the plaza. I will say that we are right now submitting for a grant through the federal program for the plaza, so we can request up to 3 million, and we have to match half of it. But that will all depend on how much we totally want to spend. But we are applying for the grant. It's due in the middle of January, and we'll have a couple years to spend it. Included in the capital budget is 1.6 million for vehicles, 5.38 million for the new bus station, which is funded by PACE, 2.8 million for building improvements, 1.1 million for body worn cameras, 4 million for the downtown flood levy. The downtown flood levy is coming. We may not get to it next year, but we are submitting it for a grant for that also through the federal CARES program. 1.3 million to fix our underground storage tanks on both the west side and the Cass Street pump stations, and 135,000 for 3 asphalt hot boxes. The vehicle replacement fund was established in 2020. We are recommending 2.3 million for 20 new vehicles. One of those vehicles is going to be a new fire truck. It's going to take up about half of that 2.3 million. There's funding in the community development section for the old Union Station. That's our responsibility to take care of that. As you know, we have JCM Properties is renting the top. That's the Mistwood Golf Course, and the Migraine is on the bottom. 368 for the Gateway Center, 297 for the operations of the new bus station, and 211,000 for the prison. Amount of 23.6 million is budgeted in the motor fuel tax fund for road improvements. So if you add that to the 9 million, we're gonna put almost 20 or $33 million into our roads next year. That's what is recommended. amount of 9.4 million is budgeted in the capital project, 7 million for resurfacing, and 2.2 million for the Chicago street. So our revenue is, we're looking at the 4.9% I mentioned earlier. The gaming revenue is budgeted at 2/3 of its 2019 level. I will say that currently we're getting about 70% of our 2019 level. It's pretty good. This year we budgeted 50%. Hopefully they can come back to the 2019 level, but we all know what's going on with the mandates coming off, going on, so hopefully they can stay open. The garbage collection fee is increased 2.3 to match our increase in the charges from waste management. Those collection fees have already been approved. And as I said before, the American Rescue Plan assistance is not budgeted in 2021. That 11.1 million will be recommended to be in fund balance until we can deliberate on what to do with that money. The 2022 amount is, we'll get the same 11.1, but it's recommended to use 1.135 million of that 11 for body worn cameras. As part of the American Rescue Plan, as a finance, I have to track those dollars as American Rescue Plan dollars. So I need to code them so when we get audited later on, that we can tell them exactly what we spent it on. As a reminder, we have to commit that money by December 31st, 2024, and spend it by December 31st, 2026. The 11.1 million, because of our revenue reductions, can be spent on what council decides to spend it on, but the 2022 amount will be limited to the 4 points I mentioned when I did my American Rescue Plan. Mostly it's for infrastructure, we can use it, or we can use it for premium pay for people at risk. What's not included is increases for the union contracts that are not settled. We currently have 3 that aren't settled, and for the non-union employees. Our retirees' health care liability keeps growing. As of the 2020 audit, it grew to 752 million, and there's no long-range planning in this budget. Our revenues, this is a pie graph to show you where they're coming from, and we're pretty diverse. Of course, our largest revenue is the sales tax, and our second would be property tax, and the rest are demonstrated there. This is a chart to show where we're at. So you can see our sales tax right now is coming in at 56 million. That is quite a bit more than what we've ever budgeted. 2 things have happened. Stimulus money has given people money to spend, and plus the Wayfair versus South Dakota decision kicked in this year. That was taxing the internet sales. Our use tax is down, if you recall. Our use tax was, when the Wayfair decision came, they made it a use tax, so it was a 6% amount across the country. Now the Amazons of the world, the online sellers, can track where the package is being delivered. So if the package is delivered to our citizens in Joliet, they pay the sales tax. It's not where it's ordered or where it's delivered from, it's who receives it. So the courts gave the online retailers a couple years to get that programmed into their computers, and it is for now. Our charges for services does include the ambulance service. And since Chief Blasky, we get a lot more for the ambulance service. You can see the gaming tax, we had 17.4 million in 2019, and we're budgeting 12.9. Income tax is a little bit up, 16.5 to 18 million, and licenses and permits are up. Quite frankly, our real estate is triple of what we had in 2019, and the transfer tax is what's driving that. This just shows by department, and this is typical of any city. Our police and fire department are the largest, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, our cost of services is mainly payroll and benefits. It's predicted to be about 72%, and that's a little bit down from prior years. And the reason that's down is because our capital is up. If you remember last year, we spent 0 on capital, waiting for the COVID pandemic. And so, as you can see, we have payroll benefits are up, but we're also recommending a little bit more for professional services, and the capital is the big one there, that 11 million. So I won't go over this in prior years. These are the things that are included in every single budget. You could go to the department, you can see 5 years of what they spent, graphs and charts. We did get the Distinguished Budget Award for the 5th time for our 2021 budget. And as I said before, we're recommending fund balance. The 10 million is from the American Rescue Plan. But that would be 33.8% of our expenditures. That's a very strong fund balance. For our departments, the Human Resources Department, the recommendation is the liaison to the board and police fire commissioners be changed from part-time to a full-time. Our hospitalization, we're recommending a 5% increase. About 40% is that for retirees. Our property and liability insurance is budgeted at $850,000. That's about $200,000 more than prior years, which we discussed at a council meeting, a few council meetings, why that was. We went out and got the best price we can, and that was the best. In our community development department, we're recommending 8 new full-time employees, a deputy director, a planner 2 code inspectors, a building inspector, a permit clerk, assistant operating engineer, and an economic development communication manager. That was approved in 2021. But what I'm looking at is budget to budget. As I mentioned before, our subsidies are recommended to be the same as in prior years. The Rialto, Museum, Chamber of Commerce, the courthouse, and the Pace Route. And again, we're looking to start, hopefully finish the citywide comprehensive plan, but I don't think we'll be able to get it done in 1 year, so. Also in there are tax rebates. Those are pretty settlements that the council passed to. It's at $700,000. It's been like that for the last 5 years. Again, in the community development department is Bicentennial Park, buildings and grounds, the Gateway Center, the prison, the Union Station, and the new bus station. We've also separated some of the expenditures in this department and created an economic development division. We do have an economic development director, and he asked that we create a separate division within this department so we can track the costs of doing economic development. And again, the Bicentennial Park funding was restored. In the city's clerk's budget, we're looking at $250,000 budgeted for capital projects to transition from the current content document management system to Laserfish. That is in the capital projects budget. The city manager's budget, as in past years, $15,000 is included for the equipment for Channel 6, And there's a recommendation to include funding for a public relations events coordinator position. In the legal department, contractual services are the same as 2021. I've already talked about claims, and there's a recommendation to budget the assistant corporate counsel. It was in the 2021 budget, but not funded. Information technology budget, we're recommending an Axon support technician. This person would be helping us do the tasers and the body-worn cameras. And also a request for a full-time position, the help desk manager. It's budgeted right now under contractual services. The IT department requested to make that person a full-time employee with the recommendation of the city manager. The fire department, the pensions went up about $500,000. The overtime is budgeted at $2.2 million, and it restores funding for 6 firefighters and 1 battalion chief, again, in the 2021 budget, but not funded. Under the finance department, our continued payment for our Tyler Munis system is about $410,000 a year. The ballpark is funded. $100,000 is budgeted for our part of the, the total budget is $251,000. The difference there is what we've agreed to reimburse the slammers for their expenses. It's in their contract. Again, we're asking to restore funding for the budget officer and financial assistant. It also includes funding for a grant administrator, which was approved in 2021, and a compliance supervisor and 3 compliance officers, and a meter reader 2. The meter reader 2 position will not be filled until disconnection moratorium is lifted. Right now, we are not doing disconnections. We are looking to transition disconnections from the utilities department so their people can work on the water main program, and the finance will take over. I currently have 2 meter reader positions, and we are requesting to add 1 once the disconnection starts again. In the police department, again, there's a increase of $417,000 for their pensions. Overtime is budgeted pretty much what we budgeted prior years, a little over $3 million. Funding for the police, 10 police officers and 6 dispatchers will be restored. They were in the 2021 budget, but not funded. But it also includes an additional 10 patrol officers, 1 lieutenant, FOIA, and 2 FOIA redaction coordinators. These are expected to be needed once we have body-worn cameras. The Freedom of Information Act allows people to ask for them films, and of course, they have to be redacted so no sensitive information is sent out. The 10 additional patrol officers is looking at restoring neighborhood-oriented police. The body-worn cameras is in the Capital Projects Fund and recommends using American Rescue Plan funds for that. In the Public Works, we have $450,000 for tree removal and pruning. That is more than in prior years. We continue, you'll see on the agenda tomorrow night, to do more proactive removing of trees that could be fallen during a storm. $700,000 for a project manager on the Hobart Road. $260,000 for the downtown floodplain consultant, and $250,000 for the sidewalk program. The Water and Sewer Fund includes $64.6 in system revenues, expenditures at $68.4. That includes $14.5 million for depreciation, and it's an increase of 9%. We did raise the water rates and sewer rates to cover that amount. and it includes a transfer to the Water Main Replacement Fund of 1.6 million. Provides for increase, 25 million for capital improvements, 6.2 million, as I just, 6.2%, 6.2 million, for the water and sewer rates. That was the last increase that was approved by council. There will be a rate study done next year. Includes a 20, little over 20 million for improvements using IEPA loans. 400,000 to the water replacement fund, Rethink Water. Amount of 23.6 million is budgeted that we are looking at funding through borrowing. It says revenue bond, but it may be a bond anticipation note, or it may be a revenue bond. Those are what our financial advisors are looking at now. Includes a 500,000 transfer for a new water and sewer center, and that fund balance is up to $1.5 million. 38 million is budgeted in the water main replacement. And again, the bond anticipation notes next year will be one for the water main replacement and alternative water source program. As you can see in the water fund, 95% is paid by our customers paying their water bill. The one item on this is our operating expenditures. Our debt service is our largest amount right now. We are funding a lot through borrowing. And most of this, you can see the amount for payroll and benefits is quite a bit lower, and that's because we pay for everything else, like the water production and sewage treatment and that. So that's why it's less than the general fund. Parking fund, again, revenues keep going down. Expenditures are about the same, increased about 100,000. 1.2 million less than operating expenditures. And as I said, the plan for the parking system is being developed, and we hope to have that first quarter of next year. And of course, the deficit will continue. We need to address this fund. And I know there's been a lot of ideas of what to do, but we're gonna wait and see what our consultants say about the parking downtown. And as you can see, most of it's coming from our parking deck. We don't issue parking permits, so that's down to 0. Parking operations is by far the biggest expenditure. And again, I've said it before, it costs the same to run a parking system. Whether people are parking there or not, you still have to remove the snow, you still have to maintain it. We will need to address this in 2022. And that's a lot of budget and a short presentation. So I know we're meeting Wednesday. If you should have any individual questions, email me, call me. I'm always available to answer your questions, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jim.
nice job.
Yeah, Wednesday at 5:30 we'll be here.
Quick question, Mayor. Jim, obviously we haven't had a chance to go through the budget yet, and we're gonna do it now, but what page lists the 29 new positions? Not the 27 that were unfunded, vacant positions? Where's the list of the 29 new positions?
That is spread out through each department.
Can you get us a list consolidated in one page?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Kamar Tiller regarding Council Memo 551-21.
Hello, thank you for hearing me once again. My name is Kamar Tiller, as she said. I'm the owner and petitioner for 429 Buell Avenue, and the attached property of 426 Division. First, I would like to thank you all for tabling the item at the previous meeting. We were out of town with plans since February, and if I had not kept those plans, I'm not sure I'd be a married man right now. So I don't wish to take up too much more of your time, so I'm asking for a vote for approval, of course, at tomorrow's meeting. Of course, so far we would like to note that we have done everything we can to comply with whatever's been put in front of us. And with anything that will come up in the future, we would do the same. Of course, as I said before, this is all started from an appraisal that we were getting while trying to make improvements to our home. We obviously have not invited people from the neighborhood over just yet, just because we're trying to get things set up and ready for them. Of course, we are very much invested in wanting to do more community involvement as is. Both my oldest boy attends Joliet Montessori School. My wife attended there when she was younger, so, she was all for it, and after going there, we decided to do that just to try to keep that going. And of course, not having the rental property as is will actually cause us a little bit of a hardship. Naturally, as you lose funds, it becomes a little bit harder to afford things like that and such. Interesting such as, the budget committee, the budget is explained up here. Of course, going through this process, I've done everything from immediately when I found out things weren't in order, contacting the planning staff. I actually spoke with Kappa at the very next meeting they had just to make sure that, get their input on it, where they would stand. I knew, of course, that they would probably go against it just off of their traditions and what they've done in the past. It actually went down more in my favor than I thought it would with a 7-3 vote. I thought it would just be flat 10-0, but lucked out there. Of course, afterwards, we put in an application, gained approval of the zoning board. A lot of this is not possible without the guidance of the planning staff as is. We were very fortunate and blessed to have them on our side there. And throughout this process, we have discovered that the original carriage house was built in the 1890s, rebuilt in the 1960s, and has been rented off and on since then. We also became aware that it was downzoned in the 90s, and the owners at the time did not apply to keep the property as an R3. The apartment is actually a large chunk of why we purchased the home as it stands currently, not to mention the 4-car garage, so I can actually work on stuff and fix things in there as need be. We are very conscientious of how we rent, who we rent to, and its effect on those around us. Of course, I've spoken with a couple of my neighbors, and they all seem to have a general positive view of it. I'm sure that some of you may have gotten somebody reaching out saying that they weren't for it or anything like that. And I understand that, but unfortunately, as I said, we don't have as much community involvement as we would like to at this point. So I'm sure they do not know me, our renter, my wife, our family as well, as I would like them to before they would do that. Of course, we do everything we can to maintain the property as is. We do plan on continuing to meet the at least 6-month occupancy for self-owner occupied residents, for our primary residents, because this is our home. We want to make sure that everything in it is up to the best quality we can make it. We want to ensure that our renter is also in a good position to succeed for themselves. It gives us a chance to afford somebody else an opportunity to live in a safe neighborhood, to allow them to grow themselves. And also, we just want to make sure that somebody that we are comfortable with too. It's someone we did not trust or we did not feel should be there or be any type of help to the area, our family, we would not have them there. Of course, with the 426 division, the only utility we actually share is the water utility. Everything else is separated by the 2 addresses themselves, except for our taxes, which we are all under the same PIN code, and we do share that. So, of course, we pay for that. So, as I said, we're just trying to do our best to make sure that we're doing the right things for our family, the right things for our community, and just helping those around us. In summation, I'd just like to say, once again, thank you for your time, and I do hope that tomorrow night I can get your approval.
Thank you.
Well,
Mayor, I have a couple questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, I was reading over the proposal and it says it owner occupied by 6 months of the year. Do you not live there all year round?
I do.
So why is that stipulation in there?
So from what I understand, it can only still be listed as owner occupied, which allows the variance if you live there 6 months of the year. So they have to put that in for any variance of use for this type of, attempt to get it, so.
And so you realize when you sell that home, now it's my understanding that Sabrina, correct me if I'm wrong, that owner occupied goes with that variance?
Yes, the variation of use will follow the land. It gets recorded and it follows the land.
So whoever you sell it to, they also have to live there.
They
But
must-
6 months out of the year, I don't like that part. I think it should be owner occupied, period, if you're gonna pass it. Why did we come up with 6 months? Do you know?
I have no clue.
Jim, can you answer that?
I believe maybe that was taken from another ordinance and how other communities have done it in the past. I believe that's where that came from.
Because all my years on the zoning board, I never saw that, and they always said you couldn't be done that way, you either lived there or you didn't, but it didn't say owner occupied, and then I checked out with Sabrina today, and that's why I was wondering, why the 6 months?
Yeah, I know that, they do require that you live there a majority of the year, so maybe the 6 month is just like the minimum they want you there. I know for us, as I said, we don't live anywhere else. This is our home, this is where we live. We don't leave for months at a time or anything like that. We were really only gone a week, and it just so happened that it was the week of that meeting.
No, I understand that, I'm
Yeah.
just talking about for future owners, I mean, if you're not gonna stay here. I mean, we welcomed you to the neighborhood, and we had a big party, and welcomed you, and I was so shocked to see all this coming up before us, so,
I was also really shocked.
but how would we monitor that if he's not here 6 months of the year? How does that get monitored?
You know, probably like a lot of other of our violations, you know, if a neighbor became aware of it,
It would have to be complaint-based then, in other words.
yes, it would be hard for us to, you know, otherwise, you know, I mean, he'd be on rental inspections, you know, program.
No, I understand that, I'm
But
just
they
talking about the
inspect
occupancy
every
aspect of it. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're
Hope you stay all year round.
Pat,
Maybe the answer is, when you file your federal income tax, the state you are a resident in, you must be there 6 months and 1 day. So if this is gonna be an Illinois resident, I'm assuming that's how that law got put into play, versus a Florida resident or Texas or some other place.
Good to know. Learned something new today.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? Next, we'll have the city manager discuss the items for tomorrow's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 543-21, regular payroll for September 10th through the 23rd, in the amount of $3,454,854.15. Item 544-21, regular payroll for September 24th through October 7th. That's $3,330,923.85. Item 545-21, regular payroll for October 8th through the 21st. That's $3,411,460.32. Next is the lease agreement, which is 546-21, and that's a relocation of Bays Rialto Building LLC in the amount of $150,000. And that's for the total of a 3-year contract. It breaks down to $4,166.67 a month to move the water department and Allison over to the Bays Building.
Yes,
So, Jim, how many people are leaving to go there from the water
I think
department?
It's 8.
It'll be the engineering staff, so that consists of about 9 people.
Yeah, I thought it was 8 or 9.
And have we looked at other opportunities downtown,
Yes, we did.
like the Rialto Square, which we're trying to help, that has vacancies there?
Yes, so Derek Conley assisted us in this, and I looked at available properties for a number of factors, being move-in ready, one of them, and so this was the really only available option that he found downtown that fit those needs.
Thank you.
Moving on, does it answer your question, Councilman?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Amendment number 1 to the Phase 1 lift station assessment, 547-21, which, that's a program professional services. That is to be part of an intergovernmental agreement. For the project costs for the engineering rehabilitation of the Lawrence Lift Station are expected to be reimbursed to the city from Federal Community Development Block grant obtained by Will County. So it's recommended we adopt that. 548-21, change order number 3 for the 2021 sanitary sewer rehabilitation, and that's a refund of $267.18. Next, we're gonna move on to ordinances and resolutions, which is 550-21, and it's an ordinance amending the 2021 budget for the city of Joliet for the hazardous tree removal, which we had talked about earlier, in an amount of $199,612.44. Next on the ordinance is 551-21, and that's a ordinance approving the variation of a use to allow the continuation of an existing rental unit above a garage in an R2 single-family residential zoning district located at 429 Buell Avenue, which is from the gentleman we just heard from.
Mayor, quick question.
Yeah,
On 550-21 for the tree removal, of course, this is an amendment to what we had already budgeted for this year's tree removal. Do we know how many trees we're targeting to remove that are necessary?
I
Does,
I don't have a specific number, but I can get that for you. We do have a total of 10 trees in the contract.
if you could, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Next is the, for resolutions, 553-21, which is resolution authorizing the submittal of a consolidated annual performance and evaluation report to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is a report that we are required to give to them. Resolution for the execution of an amendment to existing lease with Verizon Wireless, which is 554-21, and that increases, they'll pay us for use of property, $560 a month or $6,720 annually for the piece of property. Resolution approving the amendment to Article 10, Section 17, and Exhibit A of the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Joliet and the firefighter 44 local AFL-CIO, which is 55-521. And this was a Scribner's error that took place, and it needed to be corrected, but we have to have the city council do that. So it doesn't significantly change the contract. 556-21, resolution approving the agreement with Heritage Corridor, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the administration of the cities and its related marketing and tourism promotion. This is the organization we have always worked with, and it's recommended we do that. With that, concludes my remarks. I will withhold my comments for tomorrow. If anybody has any questions.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments this evening? Did receive a request for closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss?
Mayor, can I, if you don't mind, make a comment?
yeah,
Concerning the budget, we did receive it a few days ago, so I've looked over it but not finished yet. I just want to remind all of us out there, just because the money's coming in
Speak
at
into the mic, please.
just because the money's coming in at a higher rate doesn't mean we have to spend it. 1 year over the previous year does not create a trend. Remember that. All of us need to remember that. A trend will be determined over 3 to 5 years. And I think this is an opportunity to actually probably keep our property tax portion from going up at all. I know that Jim Gaddotti has suggested a portion of it. I'll finish crunching the numbers, as well as looking at repealing the gas tax. If we're at almost 36 million in additional revenues, 21 over 20, I'm sorry, 20 over 19, and we're projecting hopefully that trend continues. Again, 1 year does not make a trend. you know, it's a good time to get back to the residents. And I want us all to consider that and not just look at it as, look at all this money, how can we spend it? Thank you.
Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition, or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
Second.
Motion seconded to approve, Councilman Guerrero,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Clement.
Aye.
Motion carries.